The Miami Heat win, but new Jimmy Butler rumors. Is it a little weird that they'd want to trade him? Plus, there's a monster night from Domantas Sabonis, and the Celtics shoot light out again. It's Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night. Let's go.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night. On Fridays, I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. Take it away, Gavin.
I'm John Karalis, Gavin Schall, the host of Locked On Knicks. So maybe we'll see John later. Spoilers. But thanks for having me, Jake. Happy to fill in.
No, I appreciate you filling in. John had a game here, so he might hop on later. We're going to try and get him on and see if we can make a little magic happen in the moment. I wonder if like a Knicks guy is going to bother him filling into his spot too here. But 3 games in the association last night, all interesting in their own way. We're going to cover them all here. We're going to talk Jimmy Butler rumors with the Miami Heat and their win over the Toronto Raptors. We'll get into the Pelicans losing to the Kings, Sabonis having a big game, and then the Celtics just bombing away from 3 here. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold today. So let's get started with the first game, and let's kick it over to Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat for what he has to say about this one.
The Miami Heat beat the Toronto Raptors 114-104. I'm Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat. A little bit of a slow start for Miami in this one. They were trailing at the end of the first quarter. They take the lead in the second quarter, and then they pull away the rest of the game, and they end up winning by double digits. But the big takeaway from here is that even amidst all these Jimmy Butler trade rumors, the Miami Heat extend their win streak to 4 in a row. They're solidly in 5th place in the Eastern Conference, and it just seems like a weird time for people to be talking about Miami trading one of their best players, if not the best player, in Jimmy Butler. I was curious to see how Jimmy was going to respond to this one. He only had to play 29 minutes because this game was never very competitive down the stretch. But he was active, he was engaged, he didn't need to be the leading scorer, but he really has had to be during the successful stretch for Miami. Tyler Hero was huge in the third quarter, Bam Adebayo took over in the fourth quarter, and Miami gets this win, and they're playing their best basketball of the season, so is now really a good time to trade Jimmy?
Look, he brings up a really good point about that. Like, this overshadows the game, in my opinion. It was a 114-104 win over the Raptors with no Scotty Barnes, and we'll get to that in a second here. But yeah, like when you look at this, why would they even entertain Jimmy Butler trade talks right now?
Yeah, I think it's a weird situation because I don't think anything's really changed for them. It makes sense that other teams are checking in because before this 4-game winning streak, it did seem like a little bit of a slow start, but they've essentially been what I expected so far, which is a good, not great team at this point, right? Like good amount of depth. Tyler Hero has certainly made a leap. They're 12th in the NBA net rating coming into this one. I think they could beat anyone in the East in a single series outside the Celtics. Like, would I say 50-50? I'd make the Cavs slight favorites, to make the Bucks slight favorites. I think I'd still make the Knicks slight favorites over them, but it wouldn't shock me if they beat any of those teams. They could very easily make an Eastern Conference Finals run. I just don't think there's any world where they beat Boston, but I think they knew that going in. And if their goal is just to be a winner, Pat Riley's obviously almost 80 years old. I don't really know if he has an appetite to rebuild right now, unless there's a Butler trade that makes them better this season. I mean, this has kind of been the Heat for like the last, I don't know, like pretty much the entirety of the Jimmy Butler era, where like they've never been a title favorite. They've never kind of been an overwhelming roster, but as long as they're kind of in the mix, they've been content to just sort of follow that path.
Yeah. Like I guess it, if you're trying to kind of like figure out like why they would seriously consider it, and who knows if they actually are or not, right? It's got to be around, he's got a player option for $52 million next year. If they think he's not going to do that and is searching for a long-term contract, like, are you comfortable committing to Jimmy Butler at big money for 4 more years? And the answer to that is like, I'm not sure, given some of the injury history and the age. And look, the miles on him at times, it feels like, when it comes to that, I think as well. So if you can be fine this year, but if you don't think you're going to beat the Celtics, if you don't think you're going to make the NBA Finals, and you might fall off a cliff next year with him on a new deal and longer than that, like, yeah, I guess you've got to look at moving him. Like, do you think that's kind of the logic behind it?
Yeah, and look, and like Heat fans might arguably say like, hey, we've beaten the Celtics when no one thought we could before. So yeah, let's keep it together. But I think it is obviously all about that next contract and the Heat really having no appetite to go beyond next year. That being said, like I'm curious from Jimmy's camp what their perspective is and like who the team out there they think is going to give him crazy money. And I keep coming back to like the Rockets kind of being the one realistic team in this group. Like the Mavs, like the cap gymnastics to make the trade work are astounding. And I don't think they really have a package that makes sense for Miami unless they're willing to include PJ Washington. I know Nick Angstad doesn't really think that that's a thing. The Warriors could get involved again. Are they like just going to go down with the ship and say, sure, Jimmy, we'll throw you like that Paul George deal? Like who's the team out there outside of maybe Houston, just because they have such a young roster that there's maybe a window in there where they could say, hey, we'll blow this up and we'll give you 2 for 100 instead of the 1 for 52 you're essentially on right now. Outside of that, I'd be looking at him getting something more like 2 for 80, maybe 3 for 95 at the most. But he could theoretically get that from Miami. Like, and I think he wants more than that. I think he wants like $40 million a year, to your point, for 3 years or 4 years. And I just don't know if there's a team out there that's actually going to do that for him.
No, right? Like there's not money in free agency, so it's got to be some sort of sign and trade situation, which then makes it figuring that out even tougher to do, right? Like the Paul George situation with him going to Philly last year was a complete outlier compared to how players change teams now, let alone big name, big money players. So it's like, I saw some rumors that it's like the Miami Heat aren't scared that he might walk in free agency. It's like, yeah, because only the Nets have that. And it's like, why are they going to throw money at Jimmy Butler for what they're trying to do? It leads to this kind of weird scenario where like they're good. They're good. They're on a 4-game winning streak. West said they're playing their best basketball. And it's just kind of weird that we're now dealing with trade rumors more so than anything else when it comes to this. Toronto Raptors, though, did lose this one. They don't have Scotty Barnes here. Let's get the Raptors perspective from Sean Woodley.
Yeah, life without Scotty Barnes sure ain't fun. Sean Woodley here. Quick thoughts on the Raptors falling to the Miami Heat on Thursday night, 114-104 in a game where Scotty Barnes was missed on both ends of the floor in his first game since spraining his ankle on Monday. Where do we start? This was probably the worst defensive effort for the Raptors in terms of point of attack defense we've seen all year. This has been a staple of their defense, is being real annoying at the point of attack and making life hell for ball handlers. And in this game, they just kind of let a parade of runs to the rim for Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson on down the line. Not good stuff from Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, Davion Mitchell, RJ Barrett, really any of the perimeter defenders for the Raptors in this one. On offense, just really sticky stuff. RJ Barrett has a triple-double as the number one guy for this Raptors team without Scotty Barnes. 13 points, 11 boards, 10 assists, but it might be the least effective triple-double of all time. A lot of turnovers, a lot of janky possessions, a lot of tough misses for him as he goes 5 of 18. It was pretty rough stuff for the Raptors on both ends. They'll be better without Scotty Barnes. They were just fine in terms of aesthetics and playing competitive ball when he missed 11 games before, but there's a reason they went 2 of 9 in November without their best player, and life without Scotty is not going to get any easier.
It's not a fun time to be a Raptors fan just based off of his face right there with it all. His line about that awful triple-double for RJ Barrett is dead on. It was 13 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists with 6 turnovers on 5 of 18 shooting.
Yeah, Jake, I have a PhD in RJ games like this, having watched 4.5 or 5.5. I lost track. 4.5 years of it. This is like somewhat typical for RJ when asked to take on this creation load. And it's a credit to him that he has been spectacular for the large part with no real help. And that's what stood out in this game. Toronto went on like a crazy run early. They took a 14-point lead and it just was not sustainable because every time RJ was out of the game, there was really no one else to do anything. And RJ, with Miami's entire defense focused on him, was incredibly inefficient. Toronto all year has won just one game on American soil. And this just like, I'll zoom
you know where that one game is, by the way?
I wonder, I bet it was close to where you live.
It was in New Orleans.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because you guys have had the 2 worst injury lucks, maybe. I'm probably forgetting a team of anyone in the NBA. New Orleans certainly worse than Toronto, but Toronto working with a lot less than New Orleans. And it's just frustrating because when they totally revamped this team, trading OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam last deadline, like that trade with the Knicks nominally has worked out, right? Emmanuel Quickley has been spectacular when he's played. Like, he deserved that $150 million contract. Looked like a starting point guard. Looked like someone who could eventually make an all-star team or two. RJ Wood putting up like an efficient, like 24, 6-6 so far this year. He's played, I think, better than anyone in Toronto, certainly anyone in New York imagined that he could. Scotty Barnes at times has looked like an all-star, and yet you just haven't gotten all three of them on the court. I really want to see what it looks like. RJ and Scotty looked great against the Knicks the other night. Before that turned ankle, they were winning. They were maybe on track to win that game, pull off a big upset. All three of those guys are really good individually. I just think Toronto wants, I'm sure what New Orleans is lacking right now, when we're going to talk about next segment, they want some intel gathering. They want to go into next season saying, how does this look? Do these three guys make sense together? Do we need to move one of them? And that would probably be RJ at the end of the day, or can all three of them fit? And I hope they get the chance, even as an Atlantic Division rival, because it's a fun team when they're healthy.
Yeah, you nailed what their season's about, and that's just gather data and figure out what works and find the direction that you need to go forward. And then the injuries keep derailing that, and it's really disappointing. But as Sean said, I don't think it's going to get any better for Toronto anytime soon. So coming up next, Domantas Sabonis with a 32-20 game. We're going to break it down coming up here next on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth, and these generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific product disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. And thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night every game, every night, your first listen today and every day. Look, we're here 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday, but every single day. And now for your second listen, it's actually reading. Go sign up for your favorite team's newsletter over at LockedOnDaily.com. Scroll down till you see your favorite team. Click it, put your email in. You're going to get something into your inbox every single day, breaking down that team as well as the league as a whole. We had some really great writers for that, fantasy basketball coverage from the GOAT, Josh Lloyd, and more. You can sign up over at LockedOnDaily.com. All right, I'm going to sigh a little bit here, Gavin, as we get to the game that I was at and was covering, and that's the Sacramento Kings beating the New Orleans Pelicans 111-109. Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan, really monster nights. Sabonis with 32 points, 20 rebounds in this one. DeMar DeRozan, 29 points. He was 3 of 3 from deep. The Kings lost all 6 games they played against New Orleans last year. They really wanted this one. We play real or fake with John and I for a couple of years now. I want to throw a real or fake at you here. Looking at the Sacramento Kings kind of being disappointing, it feels like this year. Real or fake? They're the team that's going to make a real surprising, maybe even desperate move at the trade deadline this year.
I'm going to say real to surprising, fake to desperate. I think they really like their starting five, and I with good reason. They're starting five so far this year out of the, I think it's about like 25 or 30 lineups that have played at least 100 minutes. Might be even a bit more than that. They have the 9th best net rating. They are plus 9.6 per 100 possessions. They have the 3rd best offensive rating at 125.6. And this was actually like a pretty good litmus test for them. I was joking with you pre-show. New Orleans finally healthy, only their top 2 players out. And yet, despite the fact that like this was nominally like a pretty good defensive lineup with Herb Jones, with Trey Murphy, with DeJounte Murray. I guess your mileage may vary with him, but like those are 3 high-level defenders on paper. And Sacramento at times was just kind of breaking their defense. And like obviously the 104 or 111 point total isn't like a crazy final number, but they were just consistently like finding really good shots in this game. And it's kind of Celticsy when they have those 5 guys, Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan all out there at the same time, or just so much shooting, so much playmaking off the dribble, you don't really know what to do. And you saw them just shredding the Pelicans with their pick and roll. New Orleans late said, all right, that's great. We're going to get a third guy involved. And then they just sprayed it out. Keegan Murray hit that big three.
He scored the final like 5 points or something for him. I forget what it was exactly, but he was great for them down the stretch.
And that was their only offense down the stretch, because New Orleans, I think, did a better job rotating, and Keegan Murray got wide open looks, and he made 2 of them, and they needed it because CJ McCollum was on a heater. But to actually answer your question, I was listening to Mac George on Locked On Kings. He talked about an interest in the Nets wings, Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe even more so Cam Johnson. I think the idea is they want to shore up their bench, maybe willing to trade some draft equity to do so, but do not really want to break up their starting 5. Personally, I would be okay if there was a world where you could turn Malik Monk into someone like Herb Jones, which I don't think is tenable. I know if I heard you correctly on your pod, you don't think he's going to get traded. I would assume New Orleans really does not want to trade him, but just like a really good two-way wing, I think that would have more utility for them. As incredible as Monk is offensively, just like at times they're just a little small on defense and could use an athleticism upgrade, of course, with DeMar DeRozan in the lineup now. So I think any move they make is going to be for a wing that can defend. It doesn't take away from their shooting. Obviously, that's kind of a high bar, but I think they can do that without totally selling the farm. But there was a ton of pressure on Monty McNair to make this work. If they miss the playoff or they get into the play-in and don't get into the playoffs again, I could see that administration being on the outs, which would suck because they're kind of the most successful one Sacramento's had in 20 years now.
Look, it ended that whole long playoff drought a couple of years for them. And, they've fallen down a little bit since then when I think they were the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. But, this got them to 500. They've been playing some good basketball recently, and I'm going to be curious to see if they go forward with it. One of the things I'm keeping an eye on, this is a long-term thing, and I was talking to some people before the game about this. Are they going to be able to pay everybody? Keegan Murray's in line for what feels like is going to be a big deal. You're going to have Sabonis, Fox, DeRozan, and then Murray making $20+ million per year. I don't know how feasible that is, not just for like any team, but let alone kind of like a smaller market-ish team, a team that doesn't seem like they want to like go deep into the luxury tax or anything like that. And I'm wondering if that's going to lead to something here. John, you're like one segment too early.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you'd pop me up, but I'm coming up later. I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Coming up later. I have the text queued up for you, so we'll see you in a few. All right, we'll get to him in a minute here. I'm going to leave that in. That's funny. Some things have been edited out, but I'm leaving that one in here as my phone just restarted, actually, for whatever reason. So maybe I won't text him. But that was pretty great to see here. So, yeah, I wonder what the Kings are going to end up doing. What do you think of New Orleans in this game?
It was nice to see what like a healthy-ish Pelicans team looks like. Yeah, missing again top 2 guys, but it was fun to see a vintage CJ McCollum down the stretch. I know it's been kind of a frustrating like few years at this point in New Orleans for him, but 13 points in the final 5 minutes, and you just saw like the whole bag. Like he was super hot from 3. Pretty much the entire night, like had just an insane banker after like De'Aaron Fox was right in his grill and nearly got a steal for an and one, like knifing back, or I guess snaking a pick and roll and like hitting a floater over 2 different defenders earlier in the game, had like a post up into a spin for a jump hook. Like it was just like a really, really fun CJ game. And you kind of see the vision where like Jake, I've been listening to your pod a lot this year because I'm just so fascinated because I've loved the Pelicans roster building. And it's this weird thing where like every individual move feels great to me. And then the whole picture just hasn't really ever made sense. And it feels like everything David Griffin's done has been in a vacuum. And obviously like Zion's injuries are a big part of that and make it almost impossible to build a team. And I know I'm going broader than the game, but I'm rooting for you guys from afar because like I just think it's fun, like how many two-way wings they've collected. I still think there's a good team there. So I just kind of want to see it, even though you're way back at this point. And that makes tonight all the more frustrating is it would be so great if they could just steal one, right? And just have a little bit of a bump before these guys hopefully at some point come back.
No, so you kind of nailed it, right? Like it really would have been nice to get this one, let alone a team that you've dominated for the past 12 months or so. And I think that would have felt really good. They were in it till the final possession. And then look, they didn't even get a shot off. DeJounte Murray just turned the ball over. That you could debate if they should have called a timeout or not. They probably should have at a certain point and found a way to get the ball to CJ, who you said was excellent in this game. 36 points for him, 4 of 14 shooting, 6 of 11 from 3 rebounds, 3 assists, just 2 turnovers. Like he looked fantastic here. I've been saying this is kind of my hot take for all season long. Like, it's not going to be Brandon Ingram that gets traded. It's going to be CJ McCollum. And this latest injury to Ingram, I feel like kind of solidifies that a little bit more. They just can't bring this whole group back next year. They're in the luxury tax now. They would be deep into the luxury tax next year. This is one of two franchises that has never paid the luxury tax. They're not going to do it. And like, this is just kind of like an era of Pelicans basketball of what if, like what could have been. And I don't think we're going to get some answers to it here, but the fact that they were like close and in it until the very end, it seemed like, well, they got back in it against the Sacramento Kings shows they got something on this team, and Sacramento wanted this one badly. You could see it from their coaches before the game. You could see it from the players on the court. Like, they were insistent on not losing to New Orleans. And I would have laughed pretty hard if they'd lost with no Zion, no Ingram in this game here. So coming up next, we will actually get John Karalis back on the show here to talk about the Boston Celtics beating the Detroit Pistons. That's coming up here next on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get ready to take on all the NFL and NBA action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA all in one place. Look, those lines are always updating. So if an injury happens or you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you can do that by just going to FanDuel.com and joining today. And again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. Again, 7 days a week. For your second listen here, go check out Locked On Pelicans, Locked On Knicks, or Locked On Celtics. We've got John Karalis here making a guest appearance, still in the arena, put it in the extra hours here after the Celtics beat the Detroit Pistons 123-99. Break this game down, John.
The Celtics hit a lot of three-pointers. The Detroit Pistons did not. The Pistons hit 7 of 37. Payton Pritchard hit 7 of 15. Derek White hit 7 of 12. So when you've got two guys matching your team's three-point output, not going to go well for you most nights in the NBA. It was just a little bit of a chaotic start to this game. I think Luke Cornett was actually a little bit of an unsung hero. He came in at the end of the first quarter. Things kind of calmed down. After that, he scored 8 points at the end of the first quarter. The Celtics then just went on this like steady march. And every time the Pistons maybe tried to make a little bit of a run, the Celtics just hit them with a run. And it was 15 at the end of the first half, and second half was just all Celtics. Payton Pritchard is just incredible. But that's your breakdown.
Look, it's the 3-point shooting in this one, right? The Pistons were 7 of 37. That's not going to get it done. 20 of 48 for the Celtics here. Yeah, when you have two dudes that make the same amount of threes as the opponent does, like this, yeah. Like if you don't win that battle, especially against the Celtics, it's basically going to be over. Yeah, and they played each other a week ago. This was obviously because of the NBA Cup. They weren't scheduled to play this game, but here they are again. The last time they played, the Pistons kind of kept up shooting, and in that game was a lot closer than I think Celtics fans would have liked it to be. The Pistons just could never get it going from three. And it's not like they were getting bad looks. They just couldn't do anything. Anybody outside of Cade Cunningham couldn't do a thing. Cunningham had, 18? Ron Holland had a little bit of a late run. But other than that, it's just the Pistons, you got to get more. 3 of 14 for Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey against the Celtics has been awful. He was a minus 17 in this game. I want to say he's like in the minus 50-something range against the Celtics in their last two games. So you kind of need one of your main guys to be better than that. Yeah, that about sums this one up here. Gavin, what you got?
Yeah, I was just as someone who doesn't get to watch the Celtics as often as John. I know the kind of season Payton Pritchard was having. It's crazy just to watch him like just with 0 second thought, like bombing from 32, 33 feet. I looked it up. Out of the top 11 3-point shooters in the league, he's fifth in made threes. He's the highest shooting percentage from distance of anyone in the top 11 at 43%. And it's just another guy. Like there was a possession where he got, it was Derek White, a wide open three because he ran a pick and roll. And you just saw two Pistons like staring down Payton Pritchard and not wanting to leave Payton Pritchard. And on a team that already had such a luxury of riches to now have a sixth guy that other teams are like, wait, what? And like just pressing the panic button anytime he has the ball. Anytime he's an inch of space, it is such a luxury for Boston. It is one as a Knicks guy that I despise and bothers me. And keeps congrats to you, John. That's awesome. And just like the insulation the Celtics have, like John, maybe you'll tell us about him, but Drew Peterson was not a person I knew existed. Apparently went to USC. Seems like a nice guy. He was out there in the first quarter. Jordan Walsh, who's playing G League games earlier in the week, he's out there pretty early. Like Boston, just because of their sheer talent, can put out these bench units with these guys that I'm not going to say you've never heard of, but would be like 10th, 11th guys on most teams and give them just real substantial run because like their bench units, even on a night where Jason Tatum's out, still have two all-stars out there, still have Payton Pritchard who can't miss a single shot. And it's just this optionality that maybe outside of Oklahoma City, no other team in the NBA has. So it's good to be a Celtics fan, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is good right now. Yeah. Not having Tatum and really not having it affect this team. And look, Jaylen Brown, you look at the box score, 14 points, but I thought Jaylen Brown was in total control of this game. He was an incredible passer.
Plus
in this
30
game.
on the night.
Plus 30 in 30 minutes. And you look at the raw numbers, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and you say, okay, but he was in total control of this game. And if you rack up the secondary assists, the pass that led to the pass, that led to the basket, he's probably got 4 or 5 more of those. The ball movement there was incredible. But Pritchard put so much pressure on that defense with his shooting and his ability to pull up from 30 feet, like you were mentioning, that it opens up everything. And when he's on the floor and you have to guard him out past the 3-point line, then you open things up for it. You got Derek White out there. You've got Kristaps Porzingis out there in those, with these second units. You got Jaylen Brown out there with some of those in some of those minutes. It is a luxury. And like you said, Drew Peterson is a guy that, because the Celtics are so disciplined in what they do, it's very much a plug and play type of scenario where Peterson, you know what you're supposed to do. You set picks. When you get the shot, you've got to take that shot. Everybody's encouraged to shoot the open shot. If you see this situation, if you see two, you move it, you pass it. If there's an aggressive closeout, you drive it. Everybody knows what the Celtics are trained to do. I don't think they run many actual plays. They just make reads over and over again on the floor, and their ability to make those reads well, and for all of them to make the right reads, that's what makes this offense click. Even against the Pistons, without Tatum, without Sam Hauser, it makes everything still work because everyone is still on the same page.
Yeah, I think my last thought on this, but part of it is that the reads are so simple because there's so much space. Like you look at the difficulty that Cade Cunningham has. You look at the night that RJ Barrett had against Miami. Like they're seeing layers of defense. There's no such thing as layers of defense against the Celtics. And Pritchard just distorts that even more. And it just becomes very simple read and react basketball. And Boston collects guys who thrive in that. And that's why you can throw a Drew Peterson out there and he can look totally functional.
Look, it's also important for them on the Pritchard thing of like, eventually they're going to have to lose guys because of the salary cap situation and where they are. And cool, you just got the next guy to replace them, it feels like. And that is obnoxious if you're not a Celtics fan, that like there's some sustainability built in there with the roster too, when they eventually need to lose guys. Yeah.
And not only that, but Brad Stevens has locked everybody up. Pritchard's on he's got a few more years under contract at less than $10 million. I think he's at like $7 million. So
it's like a 4 for 30, right? Which is insane.
Yeah. It was, they did a great job of getting guys locked up before this season, kind of knowing, I think, that there's a potential for everybody to have a great season and take advantage of where they were, guys that wanted to get their paydays, and knowing that the second apron and all of that was, still an issue. Brad Stevens did a great job kind of planning this out and maybe extending the window, maybe with a little bit of a different group, but extending the window for maybe an extra year or two.
All right, John, get out of here because it looks like they're going to kick you out of the Boston Garden right there. I don't see a court back there either.
Yeah, no, it's either that or I'm going to start warming up with Andrea Bocelli for his Christmas concert tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
I was like, get out of here, go do your show, and we appreciate you hopping on here with us at the last minute.
John, I would buy tickets for that. Name the number. I'm there. Let me know.
Okay, I'll run it by Andrea and see what he's got.
Okay, cool.
All right,
see you guys.
Bye. Look at what we can do on the Locked On Network that nobody else can do here in the moment, getting John Karalis of Locked On Celtics to hop on live from there. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On Fridays, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
Yeah, I'm Gavin Schall, host of Locked On Knicks. You can find us wherever podcasts are found. And I host Locked On NBAs on Saturdays for Sunday morning, so you can tune in then as well.
8 games on Friday in the association. We're going to be recapping it here, so make sure you are subscribed to Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night, wherever you get your podcast. We'll see y'all next time.